and welcome to the Charles River Conservancy Parkland Show. My name is Renata von Charner. I'm the founder and president of the Charles River Conservancy, and today we are talking about a very special aspect of making the parklands active, attractive and accessible, and it's the musical part. Welcome, Chris Wilkins.
Thank you, Renata.
Chris Wilkins is the artistic director of the Boston Landmarks Orchestra, and you might have seen him, heard him at the Hatchell, and you might have heard his brass band at the opening of the skate park or in Revere Park. So we're looking at the various places where you play.
Right.
So, Chris, you have come back to Boston after living all over the country.
Right. I grew up here. I trained here. I studied music here as a child. I played in Benjamin Zander's youth orchestra. And then I went away for about 25 years and lived in various parts of the country and overseas as well, leading orchestras. So I'm delighted to come full circle and now be music director of an orchestra here in my hometown.
Wow, it's wonderful. We're lucky to have you. And all of you probably know that in the summer, the Landmarks Orchestra performs at the Hatchell, wonderful on Wednesday evenings. It's a very special, and your season goes from when to when?
We go from most of July right through to Labor Day, all the Wednesday nights. So our performances are Wednesday. If it's raining, we move it to Thursday. And if it's raining on Thursday as well, we have to figure out something else and go indoors. But it's an iconic venue. The Hatchell was constructed in 1928 first on the banks of the Charles. And the first concert that took place at that venue was on July 4th, 1929. Arthur Fiedler conducted the Boston Pops.
Wow, wow, wonderful. So let's go to our, how we often start our concerts. This is the Cambridge and the Boston side of the Charles River. And of course, the Hatchell is right here on the Boston side. People from Cambridge can walk to it over the Longfellow Bridge or the Mass Avenue Bridge and settle there on their blanket. And so these concerts are very much part of what the offerings are along the Charles River. And that's your website where people can find you. And this is what somebody might see as they approach you.
Right, that's looking out over the lagoon.
Yeah, and here you are in your white summer outfits in this beautiful space.
And you see the beautiful teak wood of the Hatchell. That was a restoration of about, what would it be, Renata, 25 years ago maybe, so beautifully done. And it's been continually upgraded. The sound got a major upgrade about 15 years ago. And just last year, the oval itself, the lawn, was upgraded by our friends at the Esplanade Association who felt that was important and contributed generously along with Santander Bank to make the sitting and the experience out on the lawn so much more pleasant.
Yeah, and normally you have a full classically trained orchestra with professional caliber musicians, and here you also have a full choir.
Right, that's right. The orchestra itself is made up of some of the top professionals in Boston. Many of them play with the Boston Pops or the Lyric Opera or the Ballet Orchestra or Boston Modern Orchestra Project, many different groups. Here we're also collaborating with our One City Choir. The goal of the One City Choir is to include membership from all 21 Boston neighborhoods and surrounding communities. So access is very important for us. The idea of inclusion is very important for us, and we want to represent the entire community. Yeah. And a good symbol for the importance of accessibility is that all of our concerts are free. So we have never charged admission for any Landmarks Orchestra concert. Yeah. We're now in our 15th season. Yeah,
and here you are. Yeah. You took over 6 years ago from Charles Ansbacher, right, the wonderful founder, and so that is wonderful. That is what you would see.
That's what our trumpet players see, or our timpani player sees, a very full oval in the Boston skyline and even a beautiful hanging moon. Yeah. And here we are reaching out, probably acknowledging some of our collaborators out in front of the stage.
And how many people would you have on a night like that?
Well, we can typically have between 3,000 and 6,000 people maybe. It can hold up to 10, and we get very full. It, of course, depends on the weather. and it can depend on the programming and what else is happening in town, and also our collaborators, because certain of our collaborators have their own audience, their own fans. Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, for example, who've been with us now for several years, they're a very popular group.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the night.
And I think it's advisable to come a bit early with your blanket and your picnic, because there's unfortunately a fence around, so you need to go through security.
Since the marathon bombing, we've had a security fence and bags are checked, but it's not that onerous, and we've developed systems for keeping the lines short.
Yeah, and several entrances. And you, as you mentioned, you have a lot of partners here. Tell us a little bit about those various partners.
Well, this is the Conservatory Lab Charter School, the El Sistema Orchestra. This is Grooversity, a night when we also featured young musicians from Zoomix. We work a lot with the Boys and Girls Clubs, especially the Yawkey Club, Camp Harborview. This is a different kind of collaborator. This is Honk, the Honk Festival of Somerville, the activist street musicians of the Honk organization, who are so much fun. And you know, we do play the great works. We're not a pops orchestra particularly. We play the great works, but having fun is also core business for us.
And I was there that night, and you incorporated them, and they gradually came closer to the stage, and then in the end it was just them.
Right.
But
and it was a big surprise, wasn't it? That they were even there.
That's wonderful.
And then they were all lit up. They wrapped their instruments up in lights. So we'll have Honk back this summer. We had, I think, 27 collaborating organizations last year. This year we'll have well over 30, and including all of the organizations we collaborated with last summer.
Yeah. And then, you know, the sun is setting. It's just so magnificent. And you incorporate dancing as well.
We do. We have a lot of dance. We have an entire dance evening this coming summer. This is Commonwealth Shakespeare. This is our production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, I think. And those are dancers from Bajucol, the youth ballet, Colombian youth ballet company that do Latin folkloric dance. Latin jazz has been a very important part of our repertoire over the past several years.
Yeah. And there's a fun part to it, on the left-hand side towards the border.
Well, of course, we do everything we can think of to make children feel welcome and celebrated. And one of the things that we've instituted is called the Maestro Zone. And in the Maestro Zone, children, although it isn't strictly limited to children, this opportunity, can ascend a podium with a music stand and the music, and while the orchestra is performing, get a live conducting instruction from our assistant conductor. And they get a little baton in the process, and it's a great photo op for the families.
Yeah, and it's also a way for them to be introduced to music, and rather than being told to sit still on, on a stool.
In some ways, the worst thing you could tell a child who's beginning to enjoy the music is to sit still, because music flows through our bodies, and it's how we relate to the music. And so we're looking for ways in which physical movement can be celebrated, and it's one of the great things about being outdoors on the Esplanade. It's not a distraction for people.
No.
They love to see the children running around.
And I often go there with the blanket and bring my sandwich and have dinner, so you can combine all those pleasures. And as we will see here, many people come by, they discover the music just walking by, and decide, well, let's stay.
This was a night when our Latin jazz combo was warming up with us, and people just kind of crept closer and closer and closer, taking pictures of the guitars and the basses and the drums.
And some people choose to sit in the lawn, the beautifully restored lawn, and some people are under the trees looking out onto the lagoon. It just allows
that would be near the remarkable statue of Arthur Fiedler, which is out there, right in that area.
The head of Arthur Fiedler.
The bust, right.
And some people might catch the music while boating. And here...
This was actually the warm-up for the Verdi Triumphal March from Aida. These are our professional musicians who then secretly were joined by the Honk musicians that night.
It helped to have the professionals in there. Absolutely, And some people bike by and are surprised and stay. And of course, bicycling is very much part of our effort, but it's great when all these elements come together.
We see that a lot, Renata. We see people jogging, riding bikes, skateboarding, walking, and they're surprised to see a full orchestral concert suddenly in the middle of the Esplanade, and they will often just stop and settle in for the evening.
Yeah. Tell us about what's happening here.
Well, you see two people in that picture. The man gesturing with his hands is Christopher Robinson. He's director of our Breaking Down Barriers initiative, which is to make music as accessible as possible to all populations, including the deaf and hard of hearing, the blind. The initiative covers people with mobility issues, seniors, people who have access issues. And here, Chris is signing. He's performing in ASL, American Sign Language. The other gentleman with the glasses there is Emerson Kington. He's a Boston Public Schools teacher. During the summer, he becomes our stage manager, and he runs a program funded by John Hancock of the MLK Scholars. And those are young students or former students of the Boston Public Schools who are paid to be our stage crew and help set up the audio and transportation, storage, all those kinds of things. And Emerson is captain of that team. But that's a look from our stage, across stage right, through the ASL location right. There's another.
And there you go. It takes your glance out onto the water.
Isn't that stunning?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with the violin and the other with the paddle.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, you don't even realize you are on a river in a busy city. It's really
I say that the Esplanade there, the Hatch Shell area, is in the heart of the city, but a world away. And sitting in a concert, we begin at 7 o'clock. One experiences the full sunset.
Yeah.
And by the second half of the program, it's completely dark. And so if we do special lighting or have actors or dancers, it's particularly beautiful.
Now, you're called the Landmarks Orchestra because you play at various landmarks. Give us an example of some other landmarks.
Right. Well, the history of the orchestra is that Charles Ansbacher, the founder, was very interested in public policy and ways to draw art into the public sphere in the sense of placemaking or beautification, or engaging the citizenry in art to make this city a more interesting place. So we're called landmarks because, for example, we played in front of the Paul Revere House, or we've played in the Franklin Park.
I think we have a picture of that.
Yeah. We've played at
the Playhouse.
At Franklin Park. We've played at the USS Constitution and USS Constitution Museum. We play every year at the Pine Bank Promontory in Jamaica Plain. We've played in Blackstone Square in the South End. I mean, we've played in, I wouldn't say every corner of the city, but that's our goal.
Yeah.
And so the orchestra has a great sense of mobility, and that is one of our primary purposes, is to serve all the citizenry of Boston.
Well, we're lucky to have you, and I'm so glad that you have a regular appointment on the Charles to do that. And here we are also on the Charles, a bit further down the river from the Esplanade. Tell us where you're here.
This is Paul Revere Park, and I think, Renata, this is the first week that weekend that the Revere Park opened in Charlestown. So now this is just across the bridge from the skate park that you just opened, which would be under the Zakim Bridge that you can see there.
It's between the Zakim Bridge and really Charlestown. It's
a very special, relatively yet to be discovered area for many Bostonians.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing there is a combination of our brass players and the Conservatory Lab Charter School brass players. Every summer we're in residence with that remarkable school that now have their home in Dorchester, and our musicians serve as mentors, lead master classes, prepare the children in the music that we're going to perform in the summer, and then on a designated night, this year it will be our opening night concert on July 13th. The two come together, so we actually perform side by side, the student orchestra and the adults for one piece.
So what I hear is you know, you combine wonderful landmark locations with professionally trained musicians, and then you bring in a lot of community partners.
That's exactly right.
I think that's a wonderful model.
I talk about the mission in basically three areas. The first is the historic and public places of significance in Boston that we bring life to through the art. The second is access, which we've talked quite a bit about, free concerts and the Breaking Down Barriers initiative. The third is a spirit of inclusion. So you can play for free, and it doesn't mean that people are going to show up. And so we devise ways to include people in the experience, to draw them in, to partner with them. So collaboration is very much at the heart of the way we program, and it drives what we program.
And also, from concerts, you also provide, in a way, an introduction to make it easier to understand, to explain the piece. I also find that very helpful, the program introductions.
We do. We like to speak a little bit about what people are going to hear and help them in the listening process.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be virtually everybody who went through the public school system learned to play an instrument, learned to read music, knew what country Beethoven was born in and what century he lived in.
Yeah.
And even highly educated people today, many don't know that. It can't be taken for granted. So we do try to make it accessible from that point of view too, which is to make this great art form understandable, comprehensible.
Well, we're going to make another jump here to something, an event that you played. And here you are on the bottom left, you're conducting the brass and drum section.
Right.
And tell us what happened here.
Here we are performing Fanfare for the Common Man for Carolyn Lynch, who was one of the drivers and inspiration, along with you and others. Nancy Schoen, many in the community, and of course the Lynch Foundation. The Vans Company, who makers of the shoes, generously supported this project. This is the grand opening of the Lynch Family Skate Park that we mentioned under the Zakim Bridge.
And it was quite wonderful to have these classical musicians and 2,000 people, a lot of skaters and BMX bikers were there waiting.
They were just waiting to get on the ramps, weren't they?
Just wonderful.
Just to burst through once the ceremony was over. And on the far left there, you see Andy Macdonald, who's a wonderful professional skater who designed the big bowl in the Lynch Family Skate Park. He's the one in the cap there at the microphone.
Yeah, and he then skated after the opening, where Nancy Schoen and Mayor Walsh, and on the right is Peter Lynch with his grandchildren. So that was a very...
And Andy's, of course, a local boy.
From Newton,
grew up skating here. And Nancy, it's worth just saying that she created the ducklings in the Common and also the tortoise and the hare in Copley Square. And that theme made its way into the skate park too, didn't it?
Yeah. So here we are. And then now here, this is, I think, again, your group performing on the left.
Right.
And now here we have a picture. We think it might be Andy Macdonald, not sure. But your son is a skateboarder. So
my son is a professional skateboarder as well.
Tell us what your visions are here.
Yeah, it's incredible. My son came to me one day and said, I think I want to move. I want to finish high school early. He was never a great student. And move to California and become a professional skateboarder. And I said, Jimmy, there are so many things wrong with that sentence. I don't even know where to begin. And lo and behold, he did it. He got a job. He ended up working at a skate park. He finally turned professional. And now he's one of the top vert skaters, which is the big half pipe.
So that's the vert. That's the category he's performing in.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's the big half pipe. He does some bowl skating. We're looking at the big bowl here, but his specialty really is the vert. Andy Macdonald's also a vert skater. Also does the bowl, but Andy's very much a vert skater. Mm-hmm. And so my son Jimmy Wilkins now travels all over the world with Andy and others, and he's living his dream.
Yeah.
And it started with, a skate park in his neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's exactly how it started.
So can you imagine your orchestra, your musicians, your talent, and his talent, and that skate park? How could that come together?
I'm very inspired by this event and you know that I was eager to have the Landmarks be involved, because that's what we do, is we celebrate great public spaces, and a new significant space for children is very important. But I got excited. You have that raised platform that's actually quite large, and it could support an orchestra. To imagine the first symphonic skateboarding event in history. And I would invite my son out, and Andy Macdonald and others to skate to live music. It would be fantastic.
It was also very moving. It was very moving at the opening on this platform that you mentioned. We had Chris Alva was there.
Right.
And he spoke. He is a world-class skater as well, and he spoke of how skateboarding really saved his life, of how it pulled him out of alcoholism and drugs, and it's really wonderful to see of how important that is for so many kids.
An incredibly moving speech, and I think one of the lessons of skateboarding, Tony Alva was, skateboarding or music or anything that requires that deep kind of passion, it addresses in many ways kids who don't necessarily fit in that relatively narrow band that our schools rather expect kids to perform in. And if they don't perform according to those criteria, they're somehow not highly functioning. And I consider my son in the same category. He didn't suffer the kinds of addiction that Tony Alva did, but Tony's remarks, I think, spoke so well to the need to provide for kids on all the entire spectrum. And you could see by the thousands who just wanted to get into the skate park that day how important these kinds of facilities are, especially in an urban environment. And we haven't had that until now in Boston.
No. And so here we start with classical score, and what we would normally assume is classical music, yet you have taken it to a whole other level, and you have many more plans to take it to other levels. So tell us a little bit about how is it possible that these concerts are free and
Right, well, we have many people to thank. Of course, we thank the DCR and the commissioner and Angelo Tilas, who managed the Hat Shell for many, many years, the manager, our dear friend, and he takes such pride in that facility and what it provides to the city of Boston. Our major funder, our number one funder by far, is the Free for All Concert Fund. That was set up really as Charles Ansbacher's legacy by Charles and his wife Swanee Hunt, who continues to be our number one supporter. And of course we raise money all year round, as you do, to support something that otherwise wouldn't be available without the philanthropic efforts of a lot of Bostonians. And so we have another full summer planned this year, and we have a collaboration with the Gardner Museum that we're going to announce. Wonderful. It's very exciting. Well,
we are coming close to the end of the program, so I want to thank you, Chris, and we will put up the website of the Landmarks Orchestra so you can find them, their program, and you will be, what's the first date this summer?
I believe it's July 13th, if that's a Wednesday.
All right.
I'm saying that right.
All right, great. So we hope to see you on the Esplanade. And thank you very much for coming today and for bringing so much joy to the Charles River and to Boston. We are very lucky, and it's only a few minutes walk from Cambridge, or by tea or by foot.
Right, from the Charles station. It makes it very easy. Of course, people can park in the Undercommon garage and walk across the Fiedler footbridge, which is what many people do. There's no parking at the Hat Shell per se. Someone has to park downtown, but as you say, it's just a few steps away for most people. And it's been wonderful to work with you, Renata.
Thank you.
A wonderful time collaborating with you.
Yeah, and the Conservancy is getting an award for the skate park, and we will have your executive director will be there. So the partnerships go in many different directions, and it's a great joy. We are very lucky. The river and Boston is lucky to have you here. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for your hospitality.